Hi there, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 330. I'm Lisa, also known as Fiber Nymph on most of social media, and today is Tuesday, January 21st. I am coming to you today from my yarn room, obviously. That's probably, you would have never guessed, right? I decided to try this spot today. It's very quiet in here. I actually recorded the entire episode yesterday out in the living room by the fire again, except at a different angle so you wouldn't see all the crazy cat antics in the reflections of the glass fireplace doors. That was too weird when I realized that happened last week. But anyway, it was fine that way, but I realized that the wood was expanding and doing that pop thing. You know how when you're burning wood, like gases and moisture escape and can pop. There was a lot of very loud popping going on yesterday when I was recording. And I realized, number one, that was going to be horrible for anybody listening with like headphones or earbuds on because it was very, very loud. And number two, if there was anybody who would be, had very loud, sudden noise, trigger issues, PTSD kind of stuff, that would be terrible because I was jumping and I was sitting right by the fire and knew that it would do that. So I wanted to avoid that. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to just record again today. And I chose this spot. I've never recorded in this spot before. And I thought I would give it a go. It's actually not bad. The lighting in here is pretty good. I've got a north window and a west window in this room. And so the lighting in here is always pretty soft at this time of day. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, so it's always fairly soft. It's an overcast day and it's snowing very lightly, little flurries. And we'll see if the crazy cardinal taps at the window later, the window over our driveway. There's big rhododendron right outside the window. I think that's the rhododendron, or it could be a mountain laurel, but we have a giant rhododendron too. He sits in that bush and then he pops over to the window and he taps like crazy. I guess he's looking at his reflection. I don't know. But if I'm in here when that happens, he'll come over and he'll tap, then he'll see me and he'll be like freaked out and he'll run away. Well, he'll fly away. But we'll see. If you hear a tappity tap tap, that's probably what's going on. So, all right. You can enjoy the lovely background that is my fiber and some of my yarn stash. I'm on the floor, in case you can't tell. Maybe you can't tell. I don't know. But I am on the floor, and this is a really good spot. I like this spot, and I have made a nest around me of all the things I want to show you. This is also the room that I do all of my shipping and labeling and everything of the Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn, because I keep my inventory in here as well, but it's out of the camera shot, so you can't see that. I'm enjoying this room a lot this year because I've purposely made it accessible to myself to do yoga in here. I'm keeping the floor space open rather than having a table up all the time in the middle of the floor. I just put the table up when I need it, if I need it. I don't always because there's another table over here too. But it's been really nice having access to this room to do yoga. It's quiet, it's cat-free, which you cannot overestimate the value of that when you're trying to do yoga or anything else for that matter, especially to keep yarn free of cat fur, which is why your yarn should be coming to you free of cat fur, because it's stored in here in a cat-free zone. Okay, let's get started. I have a finished object to show you, and there are socks. I believe the first one was finished last week when I showed you. These are my Gimme Some Sugar. I was going to say Give Me Some Lovin'. That's not the colorway. Give Me Some Sugar cookies. That was the colorway. It was the last colorway from the Just Desserts self-striping club. So it was shipped out in December. And I knit it up pretty quickly with my skein. This is my traveler base, so this is sport weight. So they knit up fairly fast. The mini that went out with this yarn is Aqua Shock Blue, which coordinates with the speckles. There's Aqua Shock Blue speckles in each of these stripes. So anyway, yeah, they're just socks. There's nothing super exciting about them other than the fact that they're a nice pair of Sport weight socks. I don't need any more socks right now, but I think I cast them on because I needed a good ride in the car project at that point, so I cast them on. 2x1 rib, 54 stitches, heel flap and gusset. Yeah, pretty much just a plain vanilla rib sock. Is there such a thing? I know plain vanilla socks are usually stockinette, but this is my default ribbed sock that I like to do. Either 2x1 rib or 3x1 rib, depending on how many stitches I cast on. So, not really much else to show you with these. Yeah, so that's really the only thing that I worked on within the last week that you've seen before. I did cast on a new project. My personal knitting project mojo is really low right now, and I'm not sure why. I'm not fighting it. It's weird, because usually at this time of year I'm all about, working on projects for me. And I do have projects I'd like to be casting on, like my weekender pullover, but I'm just not feeling it right now. So I'm not pushing it. I'm not forcing myself to do it. But one thing that I do really want to be working on is show samples. So, and I think I talked about that last week, but that's what I cast on this week. I cast on a new object, and let's see, I have the pattern here. It is a cowl that I'm making out of my ridgetop fingering weight base. Here it is. It is called Wind Waker by Vera Thobin. It is a cowl, a colorwork cowl. It's really pretty, and I've had this in my queue for quite some time. It's not a new pattern. I think it was put out in, the date's not on here. I want to say maybe 2013, 2014 is when it was published. So it's been around a while, and I think it made it into my queue because somebody was wearing it when they came into my booth at a show one time, and I'm like, ooh, that's pretty, what is that? And they told me, and that's how I added it to my queue. And so I decided, this would be a really excellent project to do in my ridgetop fingering. Ridgetop is my non-superwash base, and I have both a fingering and a DK weight version. And I really want to make more I'm sorry, I just kicked my tripod. I really want to make more samples out of those bases to have at shows, because I'd really like to promote that yarn. I love this yarn. And so I cast on this Wind Waker, which is a very, it's got an arrow motif that goes around it, and you can start to see the arrows coming out. I think I have maybe three or four more rounds to go on this orange one, and then I'll switch to another color. And there's 4 of these, and each one, you can do each one in a different color. That's how she shows it in the pattern. So you've got your main color and then 4 contrasting colors. You could do all of them in the same color, one contrasting color, but I'm doing 4. So this one, my background color, my main color is Wisp. And then this first one is Ember, which is this really fun orange. It's sort of looking a little reddish pink here, but it's actually an orange. Here's Wisp. And then the other 3 colors that I'm going to be using, come on, get out of the basket, are Warm Honey, Lime, and Peacock Blue. So I think, hey, I'm hiding. I think that's going to be a really fun, bright, happy combination for this cowl. Now, here's the thing about this cowl. First off, the instructions, this is a free pattern, by the way, on Ravelry. So I don't feel like I'm giving anything away. You can find it. But the first instructions on here are provisionally cast on 600 stitches. I'm like, yeah, no, not doing that. So I did not provisionally cast on 600 stitches, because quite frankly, casting on 600 stitches in any way is a giant undertaking. So I just did a regular lawn tail cast on, and then I'm going to bind it off normally as well. You're supposed to provisionally cast on, because then when you're done, you're supposed to graft the cast on edge and the finished edge together. So it's making a tube cowl, but because it's 600 stitches, you're working the cowl in the big direction, the big circular direction, not the small around the circumference direction. Do you know what I mean? I want to say horizontally and vertically, but there's really no horizontal and vertical to this that I can figure out so that we would all be talking about the same thing. At any rate, the direction in which you're working the color work is the largest circumference. And then when you fold it over, that will make your small circumference. It will be quite a small circumference though, because the finished width of this fabric from cast on edge to the finished edge is only 7 inches. So when you fold it over, your width is going to be like 3.5 inches for this cowl. Now it's long enough that you can triple it, and so it is going to be fairly warm if you would do that. There's some pictures, actually the picture I showed you, I believe she has it tripled in that picture, because then there's a couple of other pictures. Alright, I can show you this one. I'm trying not to show you the chart. Here, I'll do it this way. So you can see there it's doubled. So when it's tripled, it is closer up around the neck. I mean, it could almost maybe be quadrupled. I don't think so. But it's just interesting because I've never seen this kind of a cowl that is that narrow. And I don't remember the one that I saw in person well enough to recall what it looked like. There aren't a ton of projects on Ravelry of this pattern. I think there's less than 20. And some of them, the people did modify it and doubled the width. So they did the 4 arrow motifs, and then they either did stripes with that same yarn for another, equivalent amount of fabric, or they did something else so that when they were done, the actual active width was 7 inches rather than the 3.5 inches. I thought about doing that, and I may. However, since I'm knitting this as a sample for my booth, I hesitate to modify it that drastically, just because if somebody sees it and likes it and then they go to knit it, I don't want them to say, well, this looks completely different than what I saw in her booth. I'd like it to be a fair representation of what the pattern is. So I think I'll probably leave it alone, but I think it would look really cool if you use all those same colors then, because you'll have plenty of yarn if you start with full skeins to do striping, so that you would have like stripes on the inside and the arrows on the outside, and then when you fold it over you would see both. I think that would look really nifty. So if I ever, sorry, I'm changing position a little bit. If I ever knit this again just for myself, I may do that. But I think for this one, I may just leave it as is. So we'll see. But I'm enjoying it now that it's on. I will say it's a little fiddly just having this many stitches that you're trying to work around, because they don't move smoothly around the circular needle the way you would want them to, like if you're on a smaller circumference like a hat or something. So it's a little bit of work to get them to go around. I am using my Lika interchangeable needles, and I put 2 cables together, so I've probably got about at least a 40-inch cable that I'm working with right now on US 3 needles. So I'm using the 3.5-inch set that has the US 3s. Yeah, I started on a 32-inch cable needle. I think it was a Chaigu. But I'll tell you what, that was super tight. Having 600 stitches on that, everything was bunched up constantly. And it was hard to work with. And this is sort of hard to work with. I'm hoping as there's more fabric on the cable, it'll get a little easier and won't want to curl up quite as much. But whatever. I'm enjoying doing the color work, and it's pretty mindless, and it's a very intuitive pattern, so I don't really even need to look at the pattern to know what to do at this point. I just understand what the color work chart is, and I'm just going with it. So it's going well. So that is the project that I've spent time working on this week. I finished the socks and I cast that on. Like I think maybe I mentioned already, I had a couple of false starts. to other projects, which is fine. Not everything works out first off, but I have nothing to show you with regard to that. Oh, I did actually knit a small sample that I will show you in the shop news segment for a new colorway that's going to be in the update tomorrow. So I also knit on that. Okay, so other than knitting, I did do a tiny bit of spinning, but not very much, so I didn't really even bother bringing anything in to show you with regard to that. We'll talk about spinning another week. I did, however, finish my big long strip of weaving that I was doing with all of the scraps. And if you remember, I think I described this to you last week. I warped my loom using scraps, and then I wove for the weft all using scraps. And by scraps, I mean things that were 5 grams or less, like little tiny bips and bops of yarn. And it turned out super cool. I love it. It's so bright and happy. My husband even commented on it several times while I was working on it, how cool it looked. The finished piece has not been soaked yet, so I've still got all my loose ends on the back. But it ended up being about 9 feet long. I think my warp was probably around 11 feet, I'm going to guess. I didn't measure it. But this is about 9 feet long. And I did this on my 10-inch Ashford sample at loom. So the finished fabric is about 9 inches wide. But I'm going to just kind of scroll it along here so you can see all the colors. It was so much fun. There was absolutely no rhyme or reason to the yarns that I used. Like I said, I was just grabbing scraps and using them. And here's all the colors that were in the warp. And the thing that I've found to be so much fun while I was working on this, and even now that it's done, I just keep looking at it, is if I don't end up doing anything else with this strip of fabric, because I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with it. I've got ideas, but nothing solid yet. If I don't do anything else with it, I think this would be excellent just to keep on hand and have as a reference. Because I can look at this and I can see, okay, so here's a place where I had this really bright royal blue as the warp threads. And I can go down along that spot and I can see how that looks with other yarns as the weft. It's so interesting how different that is. And this section here, this is one of my favorite sections actually. The warp is like a combination of, there's some green and some pink. Yeah, it's mostly greens and pinks in here. But then the weft is, in this section, it's this green. So it's this really nice, light, springy. And then you get up here to this blue weft, and it looks totally different. And here we've got, what's this? This is sort of a blue and purple. It's just, everything changes. And here you've got this mint green. I love it. I love how different it looks. And look at it with this bright fuchsia. I'm just having so much fun looking at this. It's like a book, almost. And I just think it would be a really cool thing to have on hand that I could use as a reference for when I'm planning projects, because I could look at it and say, okay, so if I do a dark warp, but I want my weft to be this color, you know, which I could choose pretty much any color, because there's like every color under the sun in here, it seems. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. There are so many colors. I could just look and I could see, how's that going to turn out? Generally, because it also depends on a lot of other factors, but like I could just get a general idea of how colors will play together. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I have a garment idea in mind, but that would require at least one more strip of this length, if not 2. And I do have plenty of, I'm trying to like accordion this. I have plenty of scrap yarn that I could do this again and again and again. I had, yeah, so like here I've accordioned it, so now it's kind of like a book. Isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, I'm just having so much fun with it. Anyway, I don't know what it'll end up being, but I'm happy with what I've got right now. I have not warped my loom again. because I can't decide what I want to warp for. I can either warp for another one of those, or I could warp for another strip of that weaving that I showed you last week that had the minis that I spun from my Merry Month of Minis set a couple years ago. Or I could warp for another one of those fringy cowls that I made, the houndstooth cowl. I have 2 skeins of yarn set aside in my 20 and 20 for this first quarter, specifically to make another one of those. So that could be next on the loom. I don't know. But I'll warp it sometime soon because I enjoy doing that. It's a lot of fun. I haven't put my other loom together yet. I've also not received my stand for my bigger loom yet, so I'm not in a big hurry to put it together because I don't think I'll use it unless I have the stand. So I may need to follow up on where my stand is at some point. Okay, that's it for really most of my crafting. I brought this in to show you real quick just because it's sort of neat. This hasn't been anything that's getting a lot of attention. This is what I've been working on at night, like right before bed if I'm too tired to knit or anything. And it's this needle punch thing that I'm doing. You might remember I bought a needle punch at, or is it called punch needle? I don't actually know. This thing for doing like rug stuff. I bought one of these at Rhinebeck 2 years ago. And I bought this fabric, just a piece of the monk's cloth. And I had a real quick primer on what to do. The woman at the booth told me and showed me. And then I came home and I started doing it and I couldn't get it to work right. And I wasn't happy with it and I thought it looked weird and I kind of set it aside. And I thought, you know, I need actually a smaller gauge one of these. So I did order one. And the smaller gauge one does work a little better, but I still wasn't getting the right result. And it wasn't until I was at Rhinebeck this year, and I was actually back in that same booth. There was a different woman in there this year, but she was doing it, and I was watching her, and I'm like, I totally get what I'm doing wrong now. I was thinking that as you were doing this, that this part with the thick pile, I thought this was what you were seeing as you were doing it, and it's not. You're actually working from the back. This is the side I'm working on, and it creates this side, but you don't see that as you're working. I didn't know that. I think because there's another way of rug hooking that has a different tool, and actually I saw somebody demonstrating that at a show that I was at out in New Jersey, the New Jersey Fiber Show this fall. And that one, I think you are getting the actual pile, the loop that you're seeing on top. You're seeing that. And so I think maybe I was just confused because I'd seen both. But the other thing is she also pointed out to me to make this work that this groove. So I don't know if you can see. There's a groove. Your yarn goes through this little eye bolt, through this groove, which is funny because this one does not have an eye bolt. I guess maybe they were changed. The design was changed. Whatever. But anyway, then it goes through this slot and through the hole, the eye of the punch. And she said, you have to make sure that you keep this slot going in the same direction that you're going. So if I'm moving on the cloth, like if I'm moving towards you, like that, the slot has to be facing the direction that I'm going. So if I want to change direction and go this way, I can't just go this way and still have the slot going this way. I have to actually turn the needle so that it is facing the new direction. I didn't know that, and that was definitely a part of the problem. So I probably should have YouTubed examples of how to do this, but I never did. But now I know what to do. I'm not doing it super well. It's really erratic and weird, but it's very fun, and it's a little bit cathartic. Like if you're just tired and frustrated, you can just go boom, 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 boom. Pokey, 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 pokey. It was funny. I was sitting in bed doing it one evening and Bill came in and he's like, so what are you doing? And I told him, and he was in bed on his side at that point, and so I was showing him. I'm like, yeah, it's really fun. You do this. And I said, and actually, it's great for getting out aggressions because you can just poke, 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 poke. And he's like, Lisa, put the tool down. Guess he was a little worried. So anyway, I've been playing with that. I have no idea what I'm going to do with that. I mean, I think I'm doing it too densely. I need to look up how to actually do it right, but it's fun. I'm just using up really little bits of hand spun for it, so it's all good. Um, Other than that, I think that's probably the extent of my crafting this week. The only new thing I have to show you and talk about is a pattern that I was gifted. And it's the That's My Jam pattern by Steve Fegert. And you might know Steve as half of the Leading Men Fiber Arts dyeing team. I've known Steve for years. I love Steve. He's such a great guy. And this is, as he's put it, his first real pattern that he's published. And it's for a huge wrap. It says a wave pattern wrap with a gradient theme sandwiched in between a delicious jammy tonal with eyelet sections and optional beadwork. So, it's really cool. Now the sample, obviously, that was made with some Leading Men Fiber Arts yarn, obviously. But it takes 2 full skeins of fingering weight yarn, approximately 463 yards each, and then a gradient 6-pack of mini skeins, approximately 552 yards. And then if you're using beads, you need 50 grams of size 6-0 or 5-0. 6/0. I don't know bead sizes, so anyway. It's worked on US 5 needles, and the pattern's written really neat because he's got this like a checkbox thing for all of the different sections that you're doing. So there's check boxes next to you're doing this repeat with this color, you're doing this with this color, and then you just go through it, and then the subsequent pages of the pattern have all of the pattern, the different motifs, described how to do those. It's all written out. For some reason, I did not get the whole pattern printed out, so I don't have all the pages. I'm not sure if there's charts also, or if it's just written out, but I'm sure it explains that in the Ravelry page. So if you'd like to check that out, again, That's My Jam pattern by Steve Fegert. And Steve was kind enough to offer one that I could give away to you guys. So I'm going to be setting up a giveaway thread in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works group on Ravelry. And if you would like to enter a drawing for a free copy of this, go ahead and enter there. And I will leave that open, and the next time I record, within probably the first week of February, I will do a random number generator for the winner. So thank you, Steve, for the free copy of the pattern. It's super fun. I don't know that I will get around to making this super soon, just because, again, I'm trying to work on some show samples right now, but it looks like a really lovely big wrap up and enjoy being cozy shawl. Speaking of shawls, the one that I'm wearing is, it's just a elongated triangular shawl that I like to make. I've had this one for quite a while. I made this out of scraps, that were left over from that really huge, long garter stitch Afghan that I made that one time. It ended up being 14 feet long, ridiculously long, and it was very narrow because I got tired of working on it. So I do still use that Afghan though. I just double it over. It's nice and warm. Yeah, so this was yarn left over from that. I like this. I usually have this in my bedroom, and I wrap up in it in the evening when I'm in there knitting or whatever, or stabbing things with my pokey tool. But since I'm just sitting here in my yoga t-shirt, I thought I would put something knitted on for you. Okay, what else? I don't really have anything else going on. The 20 and 20 challenge is happening right now. The lists are locked, so if you're taking part, I think we have close to 60 people taking part in it, so that's exciting. If you're taking part, your lists are locked now, but let me just clarify, and let me also move my leg a little bit here so I don't cramp up. Okay. Just because the lists in the Ravelry group are locked does not mean you can't make your own modifications, because I'm assuming that everybody has their list also kind of printed out for them or handwritten or whatever that they can be working from in between the periods where the lists are open. Locking the lists was mainly, I was thinking of it as a motivational tool. Like, these are the things that I've decided that I want to focus on for this first quarter. And having them locked, for me, the way my brain works, I think, okay, those are the things that I don't want to change. I might add to them. I might, modify those plans in some way, but I'm going to try to stick to what I planned. Rather than just, having no plan, I guess is the difference. So that was my whole thought behind that. But I keep getting questions from people. Well, I haven't had them as much now that the lists are locked, but, about, can I do this with my list? Or what about this? Or can I change this? And it's like, the answer is yes. Yes. The whole point of this is to make these lists work for you, whatever's motivational for you, whatever will be inspirational for your crafting for this year. If you have a bunch of yarns or a bunch of patterns that have been in your queue that you've really wanted to work with, and you've put them on these lists, there's probably a reason for that. So go for it. Try working with those. But if something comes up and it just isn't working out, don't frustrate yourself over it. That's certainly not the point. Give it a good go, and if you need to change it or modify it, that's fine. It's all what you want it to be. There are no hard and fast rules for the 20 and 20. It's all in what works well for you. Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful and reassuring for you. It's mostly a lot of fun. We do have the chatter thread for 20 and 20 open. So there's a lot of chatter going on in there. So please feel free to be part of that. And yeah. Okay, I think we're going to go on to 10% right now, which I don't really have a lot of 10% either. It's January. I feel like this is a good part of the winter. I like this time after the holidays. I feel like it's the deep, quiet part of winter that I really enjoy. It's like I'm not tired of winter yet. In fact, we haven't had a lot of winter. I mean, there's snow on the ground right now, but we had a really unseasonably warm spell for a while where it was ridiculously warm, actually warm, like 60s, almost 70. That's not winter, folks. Not here in Western Pennsylvania. So I'm glad that it's cold again. I can have fires in the fireplace, and there's snow outside, and it's pretty, and it's quiet. It's just quiet. There's not a lot going on. I'm happy at this time of year. So I've just sort of been embracing that, and as I think I might have talked about last episode, I'm really trying to focus inward, which is a natural tendency for me in the winter anyway, to kind of, especially in January, start of the year, try to figure out what I want to happen this year. And I have my goals and my plans for this year, but my biggest plan for January was just to kind of set the stage for the coming year, both personally and business-wise. And specifically, I wanted to work on, getting myself and my health kind of under control isn't right, because it's not like it was haywire, but I just really wanted to get in touch with that, and see what I could do to improve things for myself, since I've had some ongoing issues and medical science hasn't been all that helpful, so I thought I would see what I could do. To that end, I've been doing yoga every day in January, which has been amazing. I do definitely, after today was day 20, the actual yoga started on the 2nd, so it's 30 days of yoga. It's Yoga with Adrienne, her 30-day home challenge this year. So since the 2nd, I've done yoga every day, and I can definitely feel a change in my body. There's areas that are more toned than they have been. I've done yoga off and on for years, but I've never done it consistently enough to see physical changes or to notice physical changes. So that's kind of cool that I'm noticing that now, and it's more pronounced than I would have expected, because I always think of yoga as just being relaxing, and it is relaxing, but it's mentally relaxing, but it can be physically challenging at times. So that's been good, and I've made dietary changes that have been really working for me. Physically, I've been feeling really good in my body. I guess that's the best way I can put it. I've been eating a much more plant-based diet this year than I've ever eaten before. I'm still eating some meat and fish and seafood and things like that, but not nearly as much as I had been, and I feel much better. I talked about the Misfits Market boxes that we've been getting, which our third one comes today. I'm so excited. It's really, I love it. So we've been getting all these veggies that I ordinarily wouldn't, well, some of them are ones I do buy, but I've been getting other ones that I wouldn't choose to buy. So it's been a challenge for me, a good challenge to like try new recipes and different ways to cook things. And yeah, it's been great. I feel really good physically. And I realized yesterday that the other thing, and I'm sure that the diet and the yoga probably is playing into that, but I think it's also been just my conscious choice to try not to force things, kind of like what I was talking about before with, you know, like I don't feel like knitting that sweater, so I'm not going to force it. I've been kind of doing that as an overarching theme for my life, to just sort of go with things, go with my intuition about what I feel like I need to be doing in the moment, and not, you know, trying to make things work that aren't working. But my anxiety level has been way lower, and I don't, maybe it's just because it's not a super busy time of year for me, but I'd also like to think it's because I'm planning life better so that I don't have to be super busy and frenetic all the time. So either way, whatever the reason is, I'm enjoying it, and I'm liking the fact. I'm not saying like life's absolutely perfect and there's no stress or anything. There is. I'm just handling it better. I'm approaching it better. I'm responding better rather than just reacting like, you know. So it's all good. It's going well. I'm having a good year. Hopefully I can carry that through the year as things ramp up. So I'm going to do shop news now. There is a shop update tomorrow, Wednesday the 22nd at 5 p.m. Eastern, and this is going to be my only dedicated Valentine's Day colorway update. I may put additional skeins of these colorways in the shop after this, but this is the only update that I'm doing specifically to make sure there's Valentine's Day colorways. A special component to this update is I'm going to be donating 10% of all of my Valentine's Day colorway sales to two different organizations that are helping with the Australian wildfires. The one, I'm going to tell you about both of them. The one is called directrelief.org. I'll read you their mission. It says, Direct Relief is a humanitarian aid organization active in all 50 states and more than 80 countries with a mission to improve the health and lives of people affected by poverty or emergencies without regard to politics, religion, or ability to pay. They specifically have an Australian wildfires fund going on right now. So 50% of what I give will go to that. Half of it's going to that one. The other half is going to go to Zoos Victoria. They have a bushfire emergency wildlife fund. They are taking care of and helping to rehabilitate animals, wildlife who have been affected by these fires. So I'm splitting my fundraising between those two organizations. Again, that'll be 10% of all of my Valentine's Day colorways, not just in this update, but if I put additional skeins in after today, after this week's update, 10% of all those, all my Valentine's Day colorways. And the reason for that is it's, you know, Valentine's Day is about love, and I want to share the love with people who really need it, people and creatures who could use it right now. So there's that. And then additionally, I don't have a lot of paid patterns on Ravelry, but the ones that I do have, I'm going to be donating 100% of my sales after PayPal fees are taken out, but my profits, 100% of my profits for any pattern sales in January and February will go to those organizations as well. If you've already purchased one of my patterns in January, that will be included. So any January and February pattern sales will be going to that as well. So I wanted to let you know that up front, but now I will show you what is going to be in the update. So I'm really excited because some of them are new colorways, but we're going to start with one that has been in there before. And that is this colorway, which is Sweetness. I've had this colorway in my Valentine's Day updates at least a couple of years. here's what it looks like knit up. It's one of my speckled stripes. It's just super fun. 2 stripes. One is the plain vanilla, and then the other has all these fun pink, purple, red speckles in it. I think it's a fun colorway. Really simple, but nice. So there will be these. All of these colorways that I'm going to show you are going to be up in multiple different yarn bases. So check the listing to see what is available. Right now, in my hand, I have Bedazzled and Traveler, my sport weight, but I have them at least on a couple of other bases as well. Okay, next up, I have 2 colorways that are actually new, but they're kind of riffs on former colorways. So I had 2 Valentine's Day colorways that I did several years ago now. One was Love Bite and one was Love Bug. Love Bug was a lighter colorway and Love Bite was a play on that same colorway, but it had a darker stripe in it. Over the years, I've discontinued the use of some of the dye colors that were in those colorways, and I wanted to revamp them more, so to speak. And so that's what I did, and I've done they look very different than the original, so I've decided to rename them in the process. So this time we have Love Notes and Love Letters. Now, love notes. Let's think about a love note. You might just scrawl a little love note to your partner, your spouse, on the back of a calendar page and say, hey, love you, can't wait to see you tonight, bye, It's quick, it's light, it's breezy, whatever. That's what Love Notes is all about. This is a 4-stripe colorway. There's a red stripe, a magenta stripe, and a pinkish stripe in there, and then in between each of those stripes is a wisp stripe. So it's your light pencily gray in there, and that is your love notes. If you're writing a love letter, though, it's a little bit more serious. You put more thought into it, and it's more intense, right? And that's what this is. So same colors as in this, but they're more intense. So you've got the red, the magenta, and the pink, but they're darker and more saturated. And then the gray is my darker soot gray, so it's much darker, like pen ink, perhaps, because you write your love letters in ink with a feather quill on parchment, or not, but whatever. So Love Notes and Love Letters. These will both be in the shop again on multiple bases, and you can see what they look like on Mountain Tweed too, because Mountain Tweed again is more of an oatmeal-y color to begin with, so it always makes everything look a little bit more subdued, but I like that too. All right, another colorway, which is not brand new, but it's a former club colorway, and this will be the first time it was in the shop, is my Fabulous Fruits colorway. Now obviously that's not a specific Valentine's colorway, but the colors itself lend itself to Valentine's Day, so I wanted to include it. So I'm considering this a Valentine's-y colorway. Fabulous Fruits was from my Tea for Two yarn club that I did the year before. Well, the early part of last year into the late part of the year before. 6 stripes, all various reds, pinks, magenta. There's a brown, a purplish brown stripe in there. This is actually mauve. There's mauve in here. This is actually the colorway that I did the Hakova Chalet hat out of late last year. That was by Sarah Jordan. I'll put a picture of that in here so you can see it knit up. So yeah, I think this makes a really nice Valentine's Day colorway. And again, it's the first time this colorway will have been in the shop. So if you were interested in it, now's your chance to get it. And it will be on several different bases as well. Lastly, I wanted to do this colorway for a while, and I finally did it this year. You know the little candy hearts, the little conversation hearts? They're so much fun. I remember them from my childhood, and I always bought them for my kids. The original company that made them, I think the Necco company, they aren't making them anymore. I don't know if Necco's out of business or what. I know Brock's Candy makes a version of them, and I need to get some so I could take pictures. But they're all those fun colors, and they have the little conversational, like, love you, or cute, or whatever. They always had goofy sayings on them, but they were fun. They tasted gross. I thought they did. They tasted like Pepto-Bismol. But They were fun, right? I think they were fun. And so I did a Candy Hearts colorway. So we've got 6 bright Candy Hearts stripes, and then the stripe in between is just a speckled stripe, and it's speckles with all of these colors in it. I just think it's super fun. And what was funny is as I knit this sample up, this was the other thing I knit this week, I realized even though it's a Valentine's Day colorway, it's not a like in-your-face Valentine's Day colorway. Like the other ones are super pink and everything, pink and red. This is a Valentine's Day colorway that I think will work really well all throughout spring and into Easter. Like this would make a great Easter egg kind of colorway too. So if you don't buy it to use it for Valentine's Day, you might want it to do Easter socks or something with, because I think it would work great. Here it is in the skein. And again, it'll be on a lot of different bases, but it's called Candy Hearts. So okay, that is all of the Valentine's stuff that'll be in the shop. I do have some Dyer's Secret Stash skeins that I'm going to try to get up in the shop as well. So you can look for those. I don't remember how many. There's not like tons, but I was going to add those since they're sitting here. I might as well give them to you. Other than that, the only thing going on is Monthly Makes 2020. So you can check out that thread in the group if you want to take part in that and work towards earning some new yarn in the year, throughout the year. I did announce winners for last year's Monthly Makes. I have a few people I've not heard from who did earn free skein, so if you haven't gotten in touch with me and you were somebody who participated and earned a free skein or two, please get in touch with me and let me know your preferences. If I don't hear from people, I'll definitely reach out to you within the next week or two. So that everybody gets what they've earned. Other than that, let me look at my notes real quick. I think that's pretty much everything for this episode. Oh, the customer favorites. I put up the survey about customer favorite colors so that I can put together a customer's favorites colorway in the next month or two. So that survey is still open. It's open through the end of this month. Thank you so much if you've already responded. I think I've gotten like over 200 responses right now. So that's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what colors win to end up in the colorway. So that'll be a lot of fun and something to look forward to. But anyway, that is everything for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a lovely January. I hope you're finding your quiet peace this month, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope you're having a lovely summer. So I will talk to you again sometime the first week in February. And until then, take care.